And here comes Milwaukee. Forbes another three. Oh, no! This is the Random Scrub Heat Podcast.
My fellow Americans, this is the State of the Union. This is the Miami Heat State of the Union episode of the Random Scrub Heat Podcast. We left you last time with some pretty good draft analysis, I would say, as I'm joined by the Thunder from Down Under and Hot Take Harrison, of all people. The big three of the Miami Heat, Random Scrub Heat Podcast, as it were. We are here to talk about the State of the Union, as I said. We gave you some good draft analysis last time, mainly me talking about Zion Pullen and how I told all of you that he would be a member of the Miami Heat. I was right. I'll pat my chest for that. But first things first. Do you guys understand, like, when you're in a car and you see the car in front of you merging without their signal and you see that an accident's about to happen, but it hasn't happened yet, but you could see that you have the foresight to understand what's about to happen? That's kind of where we're at right now. It is July 7th, and the offseason has not been promising. Zach Lowe said it too, that Miami and Milwaukee are like the two teams that have had a pretty shitty offseason, to put it plainly, and I would 100% agree with that. The State of the Union we're calling it that because we're really going to dive in here. We're not going to do the whole Festivus thing that we did. If you want to hear a Festivus about all the previous moves that Miami screwed up on, we have a podcast for that, believe it or not. You can go back and watch that, where all three of us talked about the last 10 years, a decade or so of just weird trip-ups. And as you look at it right now, the Heat in their current situation is because of those mainly decades-long trip-ups, some of them worse than others. And you make enough mistakes, you kind of handcuff yourself to make any kind of moves. And that's why you haven't seen any moves. The Heat, do they hold on to their assets for too long, as we've seen in years past? Yes. Do they not know when to get off of them at the right time to get any kind of recoup back? Yes. Did we think we learned, or that the Heat learned from this to not offer their own players really long, stupid contracts? Well, we thought so. But then we hear reports. Barry Jackson says that the Miami Heat were fiending to offer Caleb Martin a 5-year deal. I have no reason to believe that that's not true, because Barry Jackson is incredible at what he does. So I'm going to take that as at least intended truth. Whether or not they actually offered it, those were the numbers that were at stake here. A 5-year deal for someone about to be 30 with a degenerative knee issue? It seems like they need some fresh blood in that front office. I don't think they need to clean house like a lot of people thinking, like, oh, Pat needs to leave. I'm okay if that happens, but I think that they need a jolt in the arm of some fresh ideas. Before I go on a crazy tangent, I want to let Harry and George talk here too about the current state of the Heat and what they think is really going to happen, how they can turn things around lickety split. But they need a jolt in the arm in some form or fashion. Remember, the first year, the big three, Spo wasn't really cooking up anything great on offense because there was a whole bunch of different ideologies that were kind of clashing. LeBron wanted Pat back. Dwayne was saying, hold on, relax. Spo will figure it out. And then they lose in the finals. Spo, what does he do? He gets some fresh ideas. He goes to Chip Kelly, of all people, to start running a different kind of offense that the NBA hadn't seen before. Miami has a top offense. They win back-to-back titles. I haven't seen that kind of jolt, that outside thinking when it comes to this team's offensive mentality since the first year of the Jimmy Butler era, if I'm being honest. They've tried different things. None of it's really worked. Harry, I'll go to you first here. How do they kind of turn this around? Is it a player? Is it a Trae Young? Is it a Lauri Markkanen? What are you looking at to see anything? I mean, not that even that's very likely at this point because they're so close to the second apron, but what do you think is possible to kind of turn things around, or do they really just nuke it?
I mean, I'm not sure, honestly. I thought this offseason was going to be kind of like, I described it as like a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and I'm not trying to bore anyone with like those kind of terms, but I thought they were going to basically reorganize this year, and I thought the Rozier trade was a way to push Hero out the door. Like, I thought they were essentially getting a cheaper Hero replacement, a guy who they thought could fit better. I thought that was the move. So now to hear that we might again be going, like we might be done, they might add one or two tweaks and might mess around with the two-way contracts, but like this might be the team running back again. It's essentially the 6th year in a row of the same team. Is very, very frustrating as a fan. I did tell you guys that we're not going to do any more pods if Tyler Hero's starting the season opener. So I think I have to stick to that. I really don't want to be someone who backtracks on his word. We will be doing a Panthers pod if that happens. So we'll work it out. George, you'll have to learn hockey. I'm sorry.
Get ready to learn hockey, George.
Yeah. Just a bit frustrated with this whole thing. It's not like the Heat don't make moves. Like, they knew all these things were happening. They knew about the CBA was enacted last season, so they knew about the second apron stuff going into this year. They knew that taking on Terry's deal in lieu of Kyle's was going to push them closer to that apron. The fact that we're just kind of sitting here, I mean, this is where I think we're at, seriously. If they're running this team back and pretending that they're going to win, which you all know they're not, they're going to be, this is at best case a 6 seed or something like that. The East has gotten a lot better. So, if they're in the similar situations of last year, they basically have to make a decision at some point when they want to dip under the tax, because knowing our owner, knowing our team, they're not going to pay the repeater tax, which if you guys don't know, repeater happens if you're in the tax 3 out of 4 seasons. So essentially, if the Heat pay the tax this year, which looks very likely right now where they're sitting with their salary cap, they would have to go under the tax next year to avoid the repeater. And at that point, letting a Jimmy Butler walk for nothing is an easy way to do that. And we'll all sit around and we all have our different opinions about Jimmy and where he can take us and what he can do at this age. Letting a guy who has done as much as he's done for the Heat, as much as he's done for this run, as much as he's done for the postseason, walk for nothing is such a slap in the face.
Yet on brand.
If that's something that they're actually thinking about, then just move him this year for the largest expiring contract you can get and picks. Like, go over to Houston and say, we'll take Fred VanVleet, who has a team option next year, so he's basically an expiring contract, and give us as many picks as possible. Jimmy grew up in Houston. He went to high school there. Like, you're putting him in a spot with whatever you got. Listen, we don't have to get into the Ime Udoka personal stuff because that's a different topic, but a good basketball coach, an up-and-coming team, one that's going to try to turn this around in the next couple of years. Like, put him in a good spot where he can end his place in a good career and see what he can do. Because you got the Bam extension yesterday, which was big. I'm still kind of shocked he signed it. I realize that, he likes Miami and he loves Spo. And, in terms of taking a kid at 19 and watching him kind of grow into an adult and everything else, like, the Heat have done well by him in that respect, but there are better places for Bam to win. So, again, we basically have Bam on the books for 4 more years now with this extension. I'll have a player option in year 5 because he added 2 years plus the option. You kind of alluded to it, LJ, and I'll kind of let George talk because I realize I'm going on for a bit here. The Tyler Hero thing is getting stinky. And stinky in the way that Kyle Lowry was last season, where we all were saying, hey, this guy is not doing it for us. He's making too much money. He was starting to become like a real, PETA for the team. And even him and Jimmy seemed to have some, little bit of, there was some disturbance there. And these are guys who are best friends. One of them is I think Jimmy's the godfather of Kyle's kids or something like that. So it's starting to get that with Tyler. And it's not just with the, I think Tyler with the team is okay. Like, Tyler's starting to get snippy with the fans. Like, he's retweeting some weird stuff. He's liking some weird tweets. I think we've talked about this on many pods before, LJ. We didn't have much of an issue of Tyler Hero, the person. We don't have a big issue with him off the court. He's never done any, like, there are guys in the NBA who are doing like fucking heinous shit who should not be in the NBA. So
half the roster of the Los Angeles Clippers.
Yeah. Or the Hornets, or like, we're not talking about guys who have really done bad things. But in terms of like starting to stir the pot a little bit, starting to get into it with fans, like, that's not your job, man. If you're going to be real stinky on the court, especially in the postseason, which we have a big enough sample size to know that Tyler Hero is a bad postseason player. He is a very bad postseason player. It's time to get rid of him. I don't know who still likes him around the league. I don't know if a team like the Jazz, who liked him in the draft because who would like him because Ainge liked him when he was with the Celtics, who have some cap space, who can do a trade like that. I have said this, and I'm ready to do this trade. I realize you're completely giving up on him as a player, as an asset. I would flip him to Detroit for Tim Hardaway Jr. so fast. I do not think Tim Hardaway Jr. is as good as Tyler Hero. I don't really think Tim Hardaway Jr. is a good player. He's basically shot in the low 40% for his entire career. But getting off of that salary and just flipping it into an expiring contract that you can somehow use in a later deal, or just to get rid of Hero's future money, is the move. That's where we are. I don't think there's a guy out there that can make this happen, LJ, because I don't know if they just don't want to Trae Young, or obviously don't have enough for a Lowry Markkinen or something like that. But where we are, and kind of how stuck they are, and with the one pick they basically left themselves now, after the Rozier trade, because it doesn't seem like they're going to go to Charlotte and try to open up the second pick depending on protections. They kind of have to fold it in, and so that involves saving money to kind of make flexibility better going forward. Possibly moving Jimmy if you're actually going to let him walk for free. And as we said, just reorganizing this thing. They've screwed up. They're not going to win a championship as currently constructed. They've kind of let the Jimmy build get away from them with a lot of their mistakes. And it's time to admit it. Get as many assets as you can while they have some value, and move on from this and go to the next iteration, which is the BAM build, and how do we really bring in guys that make his life easier.
And before we go to George here, Harry, to your point, we were always whining the last couple of years, right? Like, pick a direction. We don't care what the direction is. Just make it obvious which one you're going to. With each passing day, guys, it looks like they're picking a direction. I don't think they're doing it very well, but you look at the moves or lack thereof, and it's pretty obvious that they are letting the rope slip on Jimmy Butler's timeline and embracing Bam's a little bit, just from just sitting in the mud, right? Like, I guess they're in quicksand and they're not struggling. Mean it to say that they're sinking a little slower. Because for those who know, right, like if you struggle in quicksand, you're going to sink slower. I would rather them struggle in the quicksand to make this death be a little quicker, because it is dragging on for a little too long now. But George, we want after you speak here, I think we're going to get a little bit more into whether or not we would like to see Trae Young or Lauri Markkinen, because we want to give the people something, like a fresh shot of something. But anyway, how do you feel about the state of the Heat right now?
I think it comes down to the fact that when I was reading the conflicting reports about Caleb Martin, apparently half of the front office was really adamant on sending him that 5-year, $65 million deal, and the other half were hesitant to do such. So it shows the front office divided, which is the worst possible situation. Be in either camp. At least you're on the same page, but you're not. You're not on the same page. And it's not just the Caleb Martin extension. That has to bleed over into so many things. The Highsmith extension, how are you going to try? How much money are you going to give him? The state of the Heat, the trajectory of the team, the upside, the downside, the highs and the lows, your expectations of the team. If that's the case, we've got really no hope in this organization right now to pull this out of the mud. Because, and I made a little bit of a visual aid here. I don't know if you can see this well.
This is great radio, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, true. So you've got a few options here. Option A is trade Jimmy. Did they do it? Have they done it so far? No. So we're going to cross that one out. All right, if I can cross it out. There we go. Option 2 is trade Hero. Have they done it? No. So they haven't. I'm going to put this down so I can actually cross that out. So no trade Hero. Build around Bam. They haven't done that. Okay, so we're going to cross that one out. So that's C. And shed salary, so we're not in the repeated tax. We haven't done that, even though we had fantastic opportunities to do so with the massive 16 trade for the Klay Thompson deal that was made, for several of the other deals, the Kings deal that it was made, the Chris Paul trade. You could have done it there. You could have done a whole bunch of stuff. You could. There's so many opportunities to shed salary and stay below the tax. Have they done it? No. So I'm going to cross that one out. Instead, they've gone with option E, which I don't like, is do nothing and rebuild badly. Because as much as this Heat organization prides itself on never having to rebuild, do it the tough way type shit. You know what I mean? Like, do it the tough way and not rebuild. They're doing a rebuild as we speak. They're just doing it really badly. Really badly. And when a rebuild goes badly, the years it takes for you to come back into contention, it escalates. It increases. The years that you have to do, it is phenomenally longer than any other situation. So the smart idea, if you do not plan to trade, if you do not intend to pay Jimmy, is to trade him when his value is at its semi-highest, or when you can. At the moment, there are a few teams out there that could really use the services of a Jimmy Butler, i.e., the Golden State Warriors, i.e., the Houston Rockets. Those are teams that are interested. Will Pat Riley pick up the phone? No. Absolutely, he won't pick up the phone to do such a thing. Which puts us back into purgatory, because if the trajectory of this current Heat team is play as well as you can with Jimmy Butler here, and then we're going to let him walk for nothing to stay under the tax next year, forget slap in the face. That is the ultimate big middle finger to the fans, to the organization, to the players, to Bam Adebayo specifically. It does not get worse than that. That is arguably worse. That is, if not definitely worse, than what they did with Dwayne Wade and not paying him. It rivals that. And I didn't think that was possible as a Heat fan. I didn't think that was possible at all, because that was the biggest slap in the face I've ever seen. Now, regardless of the accent I do know Miami basketball. I have been watching it for 15 years. And there's been very few times I've sat there and thought to myself, well, this is going really fucking badly. And it's had for years and years and years. That's exactly what's happening. You're watching the demise of the Heat organization and the front office. And you're watching a front office divided, a player base divided, as you see with Tyler Hero now calling out, or liking tweets regarding Jimmy Butler. You're seeing it all. It is the culmination of 1,000 different things that have come into one, and it sucks. We lost Caleb Barton. We lost Gabe Vincent. We lost Max Strus. We lost Kendrick Nunn for nothing. And we've got idiots out there who are defending these moves and are saying, well, how are we supposed to compete without these players? We're competing without them anyway. We let them go for nothing. Reports coming out before Max Strus got traded, left to go to the Cavaliers, was that there was a first-round pick on the table from the Minnesota Timberwolves. You knew you weren't bringing him back. You knew that was not on the cards. And yet, you do nothing anyway. Now, I can understand. No, I can't understand. Sorry. I can accept doing this with role players. Not trading a star like Jimmy Butler when you have the opportunity is high treason. It's basically high treason. It has to be. Because if you know you're not going to pay him, and you haven't even offered the contract now, so I doubt that's going to change in the future. Why not move him? Why not pick a direction finally? And it comes back down to the front office. Thank you. It comes down to the front office. And I don't see a change. I don't see a quick fix around this. I don't even see them filling out necessary holes in the roster they have now. If you look at the roster, you have Terry Rozier as your point guard. The one after that is Drew Smith.
Zion Pullen.
Doesn't count.
He's better. He's better than Drew Smith.
I agree.
He legitimately is. We'll get into Summer League in a little bit, but he is better.
I agree. I'm sitting here saying, what the fuck are we doing? We drafted a big. I said, don't draft the big. You know what? I'm fine with Kel'el Ware. Happy. He played well today. Good for him. It's got nothing. My judgment of the player is nothing to do with his last 2 games of Summer League. I could care less if he puts up 100 points or 0 points. I don't care. I think I can get around the pick and understand it and accept it. What I can't accept is what you've done with Caleb Barton, what you're continuing to do with these players. You know you're going to be a repeated tax-paying team. You know next year is going to be a problem. If you don't want to be in the tax, this was the offseason to do it. You've got an amazing draft class coming up. You've got interested teams in big players. You've got interested teams in scorers, where Tyler Hero, as much as I give him shit, is a good scorer. And you've still got fans sitting there saying, "Oh, we can't lose him for nothing. We can't lose for." We lost other role players for nothing. Why not this one? The one that's making $33 million. You just seen Cole Swider in the Summer League today. He's shooting amazing. He can do Duncan's job. He can literally do Duncan's job, because Duncan has one job, regardless of the leap that he took this year, of all that crap. I still believe that he's highly expendable. He's also making $19
his
million.
contract's also technically expiring, so
Yeah. He's got
it's
a
an
player
enticing
option.
contract.
George, can I jump in for a second? Because that's what
Yeah.
I've been confused about too. With like, so I was having an argument with someone yesterday, and essentially they were saying, "Well, you can't get value for the guy because his value's to the team trying to win." And then he was saying, "But they haven't been able to find a replacement for like Gabe and Max, for example, like those two guys who are part of the finals team, and then they left for you got a second round pick for Max, luckily, because he got over the mid level exception, so you got lucky there." But my point was, they're leaving. It doesn't matter if you can replace them or not, because you have to replace them once they leave. You have no choice. Once they're gone, you have to replace the guy. You can't just have a hole in the roster. And so if you know this stuff, why aren't you getting out ahead of it? Like, did they expect Caleb to be the Eastern Conference final player again? Because he didn't do that well in the finals after that. He didn't start the season off well. He had the injury. Like the season after, when there were literally, when I think you did the tweet yesterday, LJ, where you were making fun of the Sixers fan, but Caleb Martin had 4 votes for Eastern Conference Finals MVP. We all kind of agreed he actually should have won it. How do you not move that guy in the summer? And it doesn't matter what you get for him, because they're always gonna find his replacement, or they're going to be looking for his replacement, right? Like, they obviously drafted this guy, Pelle Larson, because they kind of think like, oh, he has a game that could work in what Caleb's going to do. Or we like this guy, is it Kashad Johnson?
It's Kashad, yeah.
Kashad Johnson. We think he could do it. And if you know that stuff, regardless of what you offered Caleb, why aren't you getting something when there's value? And the other thing I'll say, just sorry about the Caleb thing, I don't believe the Heat for one goddamn second. Is it possible the agent misread the market very badly? Of course. If he did, and there was still mutual interest with the Heat wanting to bring Caleb back, which it sounds like there was some interest, obviously, why wouldn't the agent come back and just say, "Oh, hey man, we kind of messed it up. Can we figure out like what number makes sense?" Because the cap looks like it could have worked out where they could have fit Caleb in under the second apron. He would have been making more money in Miami without the tax. It kind of seems like I think the Heat weren't
And
offering.
it wasn't just a small drop off, by the way, of that contract between what the Heat were offering and what the 76ers reportedly have offered, and it's been accepted. It's not a small difference. He's not making, on average, I think it's like $8.8 million a year, which is a massive decrease from the $65 million 5-year deal that he was being offered.
I think if you guys want, this will never come out, but if you want my conspiracy theory on it, I think that they said take the option this year at 7. We'll give you 2 full guaranteed years at like 13.5 or whatever. So essentially, we're going to put him very similar to what he's making with the Sixers, and the last 2 years were like semi-guaranteed. I think that's kind of what they were doing.
It was a wink and a handshake kind of thing.
To almost protect themselves from like I mean, I've heard from sources that the knee is still not great. So, we'll see what happens. I want him to do well in Philly because I like Caleb. I don't want him to do well because I hate the Sixers. So I'm mixed there. But, I think that people were very quick to blame the agent and be like, oh, he just lost his client $30 million. These things where you're expecting the extension to happen right away, obviously something concerned them. Whether it was a Heat team that isn't willing to pay the tax isn't willing to pay the tax for seasons after seasons. It doesn't look like the Suns owner who's going to pay the tax be damned. And the way the Warriors paid it for years. And, I was kind of making this comparison yesterday. Dwayne Wade essentially walked away from a very similar handshake deal that would have paid him almost exactly the same that he got with the Bulls, because he didn't trust the Heat to do what they were going to say and max him out the year after he was going to take this very reduced salary. So you've kind of set yourself up where because you have an owner who's looking to, it's not that Mickey is cheap. It's that Mickey is not going to spend whatever is necessary to win. There is a limit that he's willing to pay that makes sense to him. And so for this team, for these years, he's willing to pay the tax maybe, but they're not going to pay it next year. And they're not going to pay it the year after.
So why not? In the perfect opportunity of the market as it stands now, move off players that are able to be moved off now? Because come next year, if Tyler Hero underperforms again in the playoffs,
when he does,
if he does, I'm saying in every hypothetical way, I know what you're saying. Anyway, ha ha ha. If he does underperform again, if Duncan doesn't keep the same level, or he regresses in any way, he becomes harder to move. Terry Rozier, if his neck is still a problem, we don't know. We haven't heard anything about the guy's neck. We thought he was out for 2 games.
They said it's better. He's supposed to be what do you call it, in shoot around in a training camp.
Yeah, but that's fine. But your neck injury is it's a problem as well.
I guess
it's a problem as well. We went from losing 2 games to losing an entire season. Sorry, let me just finish off my point, and then we can move on as well. That's where it comes to it. So important. Back to picking a fucking direction. Pick and your only wrong choice here is the choice they made, which is stay stagnant. If you're worried about the tax, move off the players. I know it's not as easy as it sounds. I get it. It's the NBA. It's hard. If there's weakness, your competitors will sniff it out. They'll use it against you. Thus, the player market's not going to be. I get all of that, but there are still perfect opportunities for you to move up the player. The Nets would might want a young developing prospect like Tyler Hero. Same with the Jazz. Same with the Detroit Pistons. Those types of teams would love a Tyler Hero. Why not move him off? Same thing with Duncan. He perfect fit for what the Pelicans are building at the moment. Perfect. He's literally, in terms of systematic fit, perfect for what they need. And he not even a look in that direction. The Jimmy Butler thing as well. Perfect amount of time right now. Probably your best time to move him, because forget not getting younger. He's not getting healthier either. I'm sick of going in circles at the same time, but I have to emphasize that this is so bad. This is so bad from what they're doing, because
to your point, George, the hardest decisions require the strongest wills, right? Isn't that what the Celtics did at the end of their last build? What
10
they
trades
do
in the last few years, by the way.
Not just the last few years for the Celtics. When Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett were limping out the door, they shipped their asses, sentiment be damned, to the Brooklyn Nets, got the draft picks they were able to rebuild their complete organization around with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Those are from those deals where you were able to do that. You have and the Heat should not value Jimmy Butler more than the Celtics valued Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. There should not be that much sentiment, guys. Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce won a championship for Boston. Jimmy hasn't done that for Miami. The sentiment should not exceed that. So if that organization's able to ship off cornerstones like that to rebuild, and obviously I'm not saying that a deal for Jimmy would look like the deal for Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, but it's the point. It's the mindset of that, being able to pull the trigger on that when it's a difficult decision, but it's going to reap benefits in the distant or near future. At least on Bam's timeline, it 100% would, because you're going to tell me that Mikal Bridges goes for 5 first-round picks. You can't get 2 for Jimmy? I know he's on an expiring, but it's you can't get 2 for a team like Golden State or Houston that's trying to compete. You can't get 2.
It's a situational thing as well. He's in terms of what they need, he was perfect for what they need. Yes, he's a role player. Yes, he's never been an all-star. But he's perfect for what and the Knicks had the assets. You can't hide your assets.
They
from other
overpaid,
teams.
yeah, for sure.
It's not like it's like poker. You can't put your chips under the table. No, everyone knows how many picks you got. So the Nets want it. If you want him, we've got him, but you have to pay through the neck to get him. We don't have that sort of that market position with Jimmy Butler. Sure, the biggest issue is once his contract runs out, if you don't offer him something, you lose him for nothing. So they're in the driver's seat. but like it's still better for losing than losing him for nothing, is it not?
Even though I think they're going to re-sign him, honestly, or he'll just walk. He'll say "fuck you" and he'll
I
walk.
hope they don't.
I think
You know what? I think this has been a tarnished and completely shit build for the last 3 years. It's gotten to a point where it's unsalvageable unless you have a front office with balls to be able to make the moves that you need to make. Let him go, lose him for nothing, and then just start building through the draft all over again with Bam Adebayo by the time he turns 31, and then he's competing again, which is
they would have
depressing
the
and
cap
sad.
space for 2027, which looks to
Yeah,
be the next like
Yeah,
big
that's
boom.
what I was gonna ask you guys. Like the other thing that's possible is maybe they're just looking at it and they're saying like, if we want to give Terry another year to see what happens, and don't like those guys are expiring next season, so you got 44 million from them. But I guess George's point I think is like maybe they just need to be embarrassed. Like maybe they just need Jimmy. Like they're just thinking that Jimmy's going to take like they're going to say we're not maxing you out. So Jimmy's going to probably, hopefully he has a decent year. Hopefully he can stay healthy. Hopefully he can play 65 games, and obviously, really trying them.
I hope he goes there
And they,
in next year. Sorry to interrupt. I hope he goes in the next year and plays 35 games in the regular season
I mean,
after the crap. I hope
yeah,
he does that.
I guess my point at this point is just, it's like Hero's becoming, he's a better player, but he's becoming, cancerous in the way that Hassan Whiteside was. Like Hassan had talent, but he was a numbskull. They vastly overpaid him to keep him. They gave him his max, which was crazy based on the player he was. And that's just kind of where the state of the Heat is. This: they find these undrafted guys, or they draft a guy well, and instead of realizing like where they need to get off the highway with them, and they either need to trade the guy for their pick or not overpay him, and they cannot find that balance. Like if this thing was true about Caleb, they were about to so overpay Caleb Martin, because look at his market. His market is like he's an $8 million player. Great for him. Like getting Caleb for that contract was awesome for the Sixers. He'll give you enough to justify that investment, but to blow that out of the water. And my thing is, if that's real, if this offer is real, one, why? Two, what's the salary? What's the move you're going to make to decrease salary, knowing they're not going to pay the second apron next year? Because make that move right now. If it's dumping Terry somewhere, do it. If it's dumping Tyler somewhere, do it. If it's dumping Duncan somewhere, do it. Like none of these guys, those three guys specifically, Duncan, Terry, and Hero, are not important to winning a championship. You're not going to win with those three guys on the team. So just figure out the next step. And I just think
oh no, go ahead.
and I think that's where we are. Like, that's why at this point, if you're a basketball fan, if you like the Heat, if you're missing basketball, watch Summer League, because, they're doing okay finding those guys. That's where the Heat excel. It's scouting and player development. Those are the two things they're good at. They're really not good. That front office is not good at anything else. And that's where we are. That's why we've had these talks so many times. That's why we did an hour podcast on the Heat Festivus and the mistakes they've made. That's why they continue to let people walk for free. This is not a top tier front office anymore. Maybe there's an argument that they're somewhere in the middle. I think it's that they're below. I think I could name 15 front offices that do a better job. It doesn't mean they're as successful, because the Heat scouting and player development is so good, because Spo's so good at his job, um, you know, because of what they do as an organization. And it doesn't take away from who the Heat are or the organization that they are. But we have to start admitting these things, and we don't need sarcasm. I don't need to be made fun of. I don't need people saying second round picks don't matter, which is just a coping mechanism when you can't admit that they're not so good at acquiring these picks. We don't need people mocking that, cutting Orlando Robinson is not a big deal.
Very
But
big
if
deal.
but if a team was interested in him last year and you could have gotten something for him, it would have been worth it to move on from him, because you weren't going to be using him in the postseason. It's the same thing we've said about Derrick Jones Jr. It's the same thing we've said about, Tyler Johnson, who they overpaid instead of just letting him walk or move him before. It's the same thing we said about Dion Waiters and James Johnson when they were having good years, and then we extended them for 4 years, which was insane. It's the same thing we've been mentioning about Max Strus and Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin. They just keep repeating the same mistakes. We don't even have a championship to say they did it right. Like, just to quickly pivot, the Florida Panthers just won a Stanley Cup. A lot of guys left a few days after a week after they won the championship. You salute those guys, you wave bye, you wish them well on making more money elsewhere, and you've had that's been that mutually beneficial relationship. They helped us win a cup, we helped them make more money, and we both won. And they'll always have that. They can always come together and celebrate the 2024 Stanley Cup. These Heat teams that came in second or fought valiantly but lost, they're not going to get together to celebrate their second places because no one remembers second place. You're a footnote in NBA history for the eventual championship as they stepped over you and stepped on your throat to win.
Exactly right. And before we move on, because the back half here is going to be talking about Summer League play and what we've liked to do with their draft. Because it's funny, we spent the last 35 minutes shitting on them because the front office doesn't really know what they're doing. But Harry, to his point, he just said they're very good at finding players, players that other people don't really see the value in. Miami Heat, their development and their drafting scouts are very, very good. So we'll talk about that in a second. But right before we recorded, Ethan Skolnick at 5 Reasons reported that he doesn't expect much else to happen for this team. It's one or two things. You're either going to make a move to add a player, whether it be signing a player or a trade, and then obviously that one move might be a Haywood Highsmith re-sign. Which, by the way, no hate to the report at all. It's just, have you guys seen that? I forget the reporter, Harry. You retweeted him saying that people are bringing in Hall of Fame players for a championship style pitches to Haywood Highsmith. What the fuck happened to this game? Is this LeBron James? Pat Riley's laying down the ring saying, "Hey, Haywood, we really like what you can do." You're bringing in Hall of Fame players to convince Haywood fucking Highsmith to sign with your organization?
Yeah, and
Jesus Christ.
And that's Mike Scotto. He's very good. He's kind of I think he's out of New Jersey, but
he is good. So I believe it. It's just I can't believe that it's happening.
He's going to Philly.
Good.
Take
him. He was already a Philly. He fucked up the Dwayne Wade alley-oop. They can have him back. I don't give a shit.
He's going to Philly.
One other player that's not going to provide in the postseason on the offensive side of the ball for Philly. That's great.
He's either going to the Clippers or to Philly.
But that one other move that could happen here, I want to know your guys' take on it real quick before we go to the draft recap in Summer League here. That one move, it could either be Lauri Markkanen or it could be Trae Young. And people were saying, back and forth reports whether or not that the Heat were actually in on Lauri Markkanen. I believe that they're in on Markkanen. Like, they want Markkanen. I don't think they can really get in the conversation for Markkanen. I mean, it's if the Warriors empty out the chest, right? I think the Heat have a hard time. They can give a competitive offer, but no one's offering anything for Trae Young. There's been multiple reports that Trae Young's value is in the mud. Why don't you get him? I understand that people are going to lash back at that. I know a lot of people want him because obviously the pickings are slim, but the whole argument of, well, he's horrible on defense. It's like, okay, Tyler Hero's fucking horrible on defense. And they were able to still have a very good defense with Tyler Hero on the roster. If Trae Young comes in, Tyler Hero's going out. That's just the fact of the matter. So, and obviously Tyler Hero is, I can't believe this is a factual sentence, a better defender than Trae Young, but Trae Young is astronomically better on offense than Tyler Hero. So it's a give and take. If people's argument is you're going to make Bam's life harder on defense, not that much if you're swapping out Tyler Hero for Trae Young. But you're going to make Bam's life so much easier on the offensive side of the ball if you get a Trae Young. And I know Tyler's money and Duncan's money adds up enough, I think, Harry, to be able to facilitate a Trae trade, or at least get the conversation started. You can give a pick. People were saying, what, DeJounte Murray went for one player and 2 firsts? Why not 2 players and 1 first for Trae Young? The money adds up.
I just don't know. The weird part about Atlanta is essentially they don't control their drafts. The Spurs do. They have their picks from the Murray trade. So, they're in a weird spot where I don't know if Trae's value is that low or if there's teams trying to get him that are trying to float that narrative because, Atlanta is not in a great position right now to tank because they would be basically giving the draft pick up to the Spurs. It's actually, we'll talk about this on a later pod, but I'll never understand the Rockets giving back the Nets the picks that they did based on that because they controlled their draft. They could have done something with that. So Hawks are kind of in a weird spot. I don't know if they're ready to give up on Trey. I think they're going to wait. And if they got something great, which made them feel okay about bottoming out, because maybe they got enough picks from someone else where it would, it wouldn't make them feel as bad, maybe they'll do it. But for right now, I mean, Atlanta's going to try to win. There's not a big reason for them to stink. It was just kind of that the Trey Young Murray pairing didn't work very well.
I get that too, but I guess my counterpoint, albeit it might not be a great counterpoint, is you have incentive to not lose, right? Because you don't have your own picks. Still, doesn't it expedite the rebuild process if you still give up on Trey and are able to get enough picks back to where it's like it at least counteracts you not having your own picks? You still have picks. Granted, I understand it's not going to be as good as their own picks because they're not going to be a good basketball team one way or the other. But that's at least where I think where you know that he's available. You know his value's not very good. Well, I guess not officially available, right? There hasn't been a report saying the Hawks are trying to deal Trey Young. But we know that his value's not great. You need to make a move. I would call them and see what the asking price is, because
I think what you're suggesting is probably more likely if they can move him and they have a player in mind who they want to build around going forward, right? It's not like the Brooklyn situation where somehow they were able to get their picks back from the Rockets and now they're like, the Brooklyn's going to be one of the worst teams in the NBA next year. They are not going to try to win. Whatever guys of value they have will be moved before the season starts. So Cam Johnson's going to be traded. So is Dorian Finney-Smith. Like any guy, even who's the point guard they got from the Raptors last year? He'll be moved. I totally forgot his name.
What team?
He's on the Nets now, but he was from the Raptors. He's making like $13 million.
Malachi Flynn?
No.
Like
what I'm saying is they're going to completely bottom out now that they basically the Nets got their draft back for the next 2 years. Yes, thank you, George. Yeah. So they have Schroeder. So Schroeder, they're going to move all those guys at some point, whether it's at the deadline or not. And so for the Hawks, I think they're in this weird spot where they would like to bottom out. I think moving Trey and starting over would work really well for them, or moving whatever. They have some guys who could fetch some interesting guys back, like Bogdanovic, or if anyone would be interested. And I'm forgetting everyone's name now, but they have a couple guys on their team.
Hunter probably.
Yeah,
Hunter. You could probably get a first.
Capella. So they have guys that could definitely like net some interesting, but they're not ready to bottom out based on where they're at. So
quick question.
Yeah.
I think the more appealing fact about getting a star or trading for a star, or something like that, or trading for a player of that caliber, is the bleed-on effect that would happen after that, because you'd have to give up. We can't accept more salary back than we do give out. So Hero makes less than him, so you'd have to involve maybe Duncan, maybe something like that. I feel like the bleed-on effect of trading those players for someone like Trey Young is so much more enticing than just getting the player. You get your flexibility. You get your player next to Bam. There's so many positives that come up with these types of picks, these types of moves, that the bleed-on effect becomes more indicative of where you're going as an organization than the player you're getting in. So you're worried about making the first move now. The Heat just have no idea where to go. In all seriousness, try fucking anything right now. Seriously, do something and you'll be very surprised at where it takes you. It's like being an unemployed bum. Get the fucking job first and then see how much your life improves after that. Don't worry about the next 20 steps after that. That'll happen. You won't be a bum anymore if you can get that job. Go get the player you need. Evaluate your roster after that, and then it's just the bleed-on effect of moves after that. Teams come calling. We want that player. We want this player. See that you're shopping. It happens it does work like that as well. There's a lot that I'm breaking it down to its absolute bare bones of business, but there is a large correlation of the way that worked to everything else. So I'm sitting here going, make the first move. Go get Trey Young. Go get Lauri Markkanen. Go get Brandon Ingram. Go get one player, because the bleed-on effect after, you're going to find yourself in such a better position now than you were before. And even if you miss it, if you trade that one tradable pick, right? Even if you trade the one tradable pick, or you go the other route and you end up trading Jimmy and you get picks back, you're finding yourself in a better position than you are now anyway. Because we're not competing. The organization knows that. They're not stupid. Yeah, they might make some dumb moves and they might not know what to do. They're divided. They're this, they're that. but they're not stupid. They know they're not competing with this roster. You know, the Cavs got better, the Knicks got better, the Celtics just won a championship. They're still getting better. You know, so on, so forth, plus another 3 teams. The Orlando Magic. Orlando Magic were in a really fucking bad position 3 years ago when they were just drafting guard after guard after guard, and now they've ended up finding Jalen Suggs, who's one of the best defensive guards in the league. Markelle Fultz off the bench, but he wants to leave. You know, but like he's not going to be there. But these types of players come and go, and they know that they're able to make the moves. They're willing to make those moves to take risks on players. We're taking risks on undrafted guys, and then expecting Spo and then the scouting department to find these players to fill the hole, like to not just to fill the holes anymore, but to play very crucial parts in this offense and defense, and then you're losing them for nothing. I've gone back full circle, but it just pisses me off something fierce. Anyway, make the move, pick one way, make the trade, and then reevaluate your roster after. Maybe the path becomes more clear.
Take the piss, mate. Good hell. Crikey, George. Let him know how you feel, mate. No. What we'll say now, well, I think we'll save most of the Summer League talk for its own episode because it's not been that bad, but I want to wait and see until the team really has like a swing of things underneath their belt here. Because obviously they scored 66 points against the Warriors yesterday, and then today they wound up breaking 100 and scored 56 in the first half because obviously it's Summer League basketball. That's kind of what happens. We'll go through, like Harry said here, let's go around. Let's just say a player that's impressed us the most so far within 2 games of action, and then we'll have more to tell you guys after next week, after Summer League's kind of been on for a little bit more. I'll go first. I'll be a bitch. I'll say it. I've already said his name before. I'm not going to take the obvious answer, even though the obvious answer is Khalil Ware. I'm going to say Zion Pullen just because of what the Heat need from the point guard position. I don't think Zion Pullen does anything particularly incredible. I think he does a lot of things very good. I think he passes the ball good. He has a very good feel for the game from the point guard position. He gets people in their spots and he doesn't force, which is what you want in the generic point guard mold. I've seen 2 games now, even that first game against the Warriors. I think he was doing a very good job getting people in spots. They just weren't hitting shots, which is why the numbers weren't there. I'd like to see him be a little more aggressive. I know he was like the 3rd leading scorer in the first half today, but again, it's small sample size. I want to get back to you guys after we have a bigger sample size. But George, we'll go, or actually Harry, we'll go to you. Go ahead, just say kind of who you've liked so far in what, a 2-game sample size.
Yeah, I mean, most impressed actually with Isaiah Stevens. I like him out of Colorado State. I kind of like the way he's played. I don't know. Again, it's kind of hard to tell if one of those last 2-way spots are open because we're all praying that it's not Drew Smith. I've liked his game, and then. Listen, if I'm having a really bad time with names, but if the shooter can kind of
Cole Swider?
Cole Swider.
Yeah, thank you. If Swider can come in and like hit those shots, I think he was not great. He was great in the G League last year. He wasn't good anytime he got called up and played in the pros.
Never made a shot, right?
It was crazy, but essentially
15% from 3 or something.
They plucked him from the Lakers Summer League G League team last year. I got it. I understood it. Maybe if he can do something, he's Duncan insurance, which is something that they need in case they move on from him. So those are kind of the 2 guys I'm looking at and wondering if they're angling for a last 2-way spot or they're just going to end up in the G League.
George, do you want to tell the people about something about insurance? Because I think we have a little message for him. Yeah,
we do. We have a sponsor. We've always had a sponsor, but we have a sponsor. It's the primary sponsor of the Basic Sports Network, Simple Health Advisors. Insurance does not need to be complicated like the Heat front office makes it out to be. Email them or give them a call today and tell them that the Basement sent you. Email James Pugh, that's JPOUGH at simplehealthadvisors.com, or call them at 321-345-7738. One more time, that's 321-345-7738.
Phenomenally done. As he bows out, and then he's
dragged me into the thing. I've been impressed with Palo Larson. I've been impressed with Isaiah Stevens, Khalil Ware. These players, I'm happy. Pullen as well. He's been. I've watched both games. I don't know if you ended up getting around to watching both games. I think that they've all got a lot of potential. I think they're all actually decent players and can make an impact moving forward. Cole Swider is 2 years ago, Max Strus is 2 years ago, Duncan Robertson. This is who he is. There's always going to be one performing shooter in this team, and it's him. That's what he's done. That's what he's going to continue to do. I love it. I posted about it before. He's $19 million cheaper than Duncan Robinson. Please sign him to one of the two-way deals. And I don't think you can go wrong after that with one of your picks. I like Isaiah Stevens. I think he's probably the best guard on this roster for us in terms of what we need. I'm not saying I found my new Jamari Bouye to then stand for. I don't think that's going to happen with any of this motley crew. But I really enjoy what I'm seeing from them. I don't take anything from Summer League ever since Omi Yurtseven averaged 30 and 15 with 3 blocks and 30 and 50% from 3. I don't take any stock and put it into this pot. I'm thoroughly into the camp that I'm now worried about what the Heat are going to do with these final 2 spots. I feel like they're just going to sign one of those players to a standard contract, and they're going to go fill their 2-way spots. Hopefully not with Drew Smith. And I want Haywood Highsmith back. I really do, because I think he's a phenomenal player. I'm not willing to go pay out of the arse to him. I'm not pulling out my wallet and slapping my cash on the table and saying he's 15 million. It's never going to happen. Not 12 million, not 10 million. 8 million I'm happy with, 9 million happy with. I think he's a good player. I think he's a phenomenal defender, and I think if we can get him back for that $10 million deal or $9 million deal, whatever mid-level accessory we can actually give him, I don't think we got his bird rights at all. We don't. We definitely don't. To go get a player like that. But I like Haywood Highsmith. I'd love to bring him back. But this team is so wing and center heavy that we kind of really badly need a freaking guard, because, like I said, it's Drew Smith, there's Josh Richardson, there's Hero, there's Rozier, and there's Alec Burks now, which I like. I like Alec Burks. He's a very Miami Heat Wayne Ellington type player. We've seen them before. They'll come, they'll go. But like, I would like to see someone like Palo Larson get one of these deals. I'd like to see one of obviously Khalil Ware's got his rookie contract thing, like he's one of them. But Cole Swider, your Zion Pullins, your Isaiah, your Stevens, if you can shed your salary and get under the cap and just pick up Palo Larson, pick up Isaiah. I've completely blanked on his name. I just said it 2 minutes ago. Stevens. Yeah, go get them, because you're gonna have way more fun watching them this year than you are going to see Drew Smith with a ruptured ACL still try and play the point guard, because it's not fun. I don't know why he keeps coming back. I think it's like kind of a make-a-wish thing with this front office. They're like, yeah, we got a spot. Come on. Get in the bag. Get in the car, mate.
I'll tell you that
Like,
pays.
It's
No.
crap.
I'm not gonna lie, George. When you first started your little bit, you had me in the first half when you were talking about pulling something out and smacking it on the table. You had my attention, whether or not you wanted it. But yes, thank you all for listening. That's where we're ending it, because I feel like ending it right there. Take care, everybody. Be good people. We will talk to you next week. We'll go a little bit deeper into the summer league here. Pause. Resume. And goodbye. Again, we love you. Take care. Be good people. George, do you love the people?
I love
Need a stop and a rebound. Fournier for 3. Oh, my.
That was the Random Scrub Heat podcast.